Hey guys, welcome back to the Off the Script podcast, joined by myself, Jermaine, and also Medium Joe, as well as this week's guest. Would you like to introduce yourself, Will?
My name is Will Dyson, and yeah, that's me. Do you want an extensive description?
I mean, you've really sold it to the listeners. Thanks for that.
Podcast, guys. Thank you for listening. Good stuff. Okay. Yeah, no, just give us a little give the viewers a little taste of who you are, what you do.
Okay, cool. So this will be the majority of the podcast. So we'll come back for part 2. I'll actually say something other than what I do. So I'm one of these odd humans who has his fingers in many pies. I am my main career, my sole career. Well, not sole career, my dominant career is a molecular biologist. So I've gone through foundation degree, bachelor's degree, master's degree, PhD, look, all the qualifications, yay. But I'm focused on molecular biology, and my main area of research is looking at the molecular mechanisms that underpin something called antibiotic resistance. And that's where bacteria become resistant to therapeutics. So if you administer a therapeutic to a bug, that will kill it. And what I'm looking at is how these bugs then become resistant and don't respond to treatment. So that's the basis of my PhD. I'm doing that at the University of Leeds. Then I'm also a full-time coach. So I've been PT for 10 or 11 years, just like the rest of the world. But then also I've been an online coach for probably 2 or 3 years now. So I coach about 25 athletes, or not athletes necessarily, but lifestyle and athletes. I've got quite a wide array of people on the books, anywhere from dads, busy moms, to US military, to then contest prep clients, all that sort of stuff. So quite diverse in that regard. I'm also doing a master's degree in performance nutrition. Well, master's degree, it's the ISSN diploma in performance nutrition, which is kind of like a master's but applied. And then I am a general fiance and human and bodybuilder. Bodybuilder being probably the main thing.
I will say you are, without a doubt, I think, well, we're over 60 episodes in now, I think, and you're the most academically accomplished and probably intelligent person we've known that entire time. Right. How did you sort of get into, how did you know that you wanted to look at antibiotic resistance and stuff like that? How did that come up as a subject for you?
It's a weird one, really. So I was always set on doing sports science and stuff at school and college, ever since for 13, 14. I was interested in medicine, and then when I realized it'd take 9 years at uni, because I grew up in South Africa and that's just how long it takes over there, I went, nah. And then I started going to the gym, had a really good, lost a load of weight. Someone was really helpful, got inspired, wanted to be a PT and walk the dream. Emigrated back to the UK and did all that sort of stuff. And that's what I was set on doing, sports science at uni, got all my offers. And then something traumatic happened in my life. I'll save you the story, but then that kind of just threw that off the table. So then I went and worked for 2 years, managed a couple of businesses, totally unrelated stuff like Cash for Gold. And I had a lot of time to think. So then I decided, all right, actually I'll go back and do something academic while I'm doing my PT full time. And I started doing a foundation degree at uni, because I never actually, despite my qualifications now, I didn't actually finish college. I stopped in my A2 year. So I needed to do the foundation degree to get back onto the bachelor's. And the initial intent was to go and do bachelor's, and then also go and do foundation degree and go and be a paramedic. So I thought I just wanted to help people. But then across the course of the foundation degree, I discovered that because it was in applied biology, I actually got quite a bug for biology. So I stayed on, did molecular and cellular biology at bachelor's. And from there, I applied to do PhDs. At the end of my bachelor's, I was kind of focused more on cancer research, or that's where I was leaning towards. But then around that sort of time, antibiotic resistance started kind of coming up a little bit more. It started hitting the limelight a touch more. So all the PhDs I applied for, they weren't really antibiotic resistance. They were in general other sides of protein biochemistry. And the way that you apply for PhDs is you literally just go on to, the easiest way is go onto a website called findaphd.com, they'll list the project brief and they'll list the supervisors, the university that you want to apply for and what it's all about. You'll then submit application, interview like a job, and so on and so on. But it's like there's a specific brief and a specific research group that you'll apply for, so you know sort of what you're getting into. And I didn't apply for anything in AMR initially, but I didn't get any offers after when I applied from bachelor's. It's really competitive, and generally, like, most people have got bachelor's now. And even though I got a first class in my bachelor's, like, that's pretty much everybody at the moment. So then I went on to go do a master's from there, did that at Leeds, and then I applied again for more PhDs. And the one I applied for, ironically, was also at Leeds, which was nice. And that was in AMR. And yeah, I think there's something that just struck me about it. I wasn't particularly fussed after I'd done my master's, because I'd spent that extra year of learning, sort of realizing that, because cancer obviously takes the limelight in a lot of research, and you sort of think, well, I'll go and, I'll hedge my bets there and I'll make a difference. And that's where I need to be, because that's where the big war's going on, with a lot of sort of stuff. But the more and more I learned throughout my master's, the more I realized, actually, as long as you're applying yourself in some direction, everybody's dying from something. And as long as you're contributing positively, it doesn't matter. And just the brief they sold me for AMR was really good. And at the end of it, they said that we're looking for somebody that wants to make a difference. That's like core to the application. So that just kind of, shone through to me. And I think that shone through to them. And I was accepted, and there we go. So.
Wow. Yeah. So that, I guess, like, it all came down to something remarkably simple, which was just you wanted to help people. Like,
yeah,
that was it. That's pretty interesting.
That's it. That has been like the core of like everything I've picked, really has been what I want to do. And it's not me trying to like martyr myself, but I need to I always joke that I've always been a rubbish PT, not because of my PT skills, but because I don't sell myself. Like, I hate marketing myself. Whenever I worked in a gym like DW or Lifestyle Fitness, and I was told to floor walk and go and pick people and ask them if they wanted a session or whatever, I never did it, because I just hated it. And I figured if, like, obviously I developed clients one-to-one when I worked full-time as a PT through organic interactions, and just by, helping them out if I saw that there was an area I could add value to. But yeah, I could never do something where it was like, it was totally on the opposite end of selfless to altruism. So.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting, like, because when I think about it, the whole reason I got into, because I had a very brief stint and wanted to go and do PT work after I did my A-levels. And I figured out very quickly in that time, sort of something similar, where I just found that the whole business model of being a PT and how PTing works is, it's kind of just a system where you're churning out people for sessions. And in my head, I couldn't like morally come to terms with the fact that I was I would take on, let's say, a new client, let's say, I don't know, Margaret, who's 50 and wants to lose like some weight for a holiday or something. And a lot of the business model and the people I was around in terms of like gyms and the environment, it wasn't about necessarily improving like long-term health and improvement. It was more about just hitting numbers, if that makes sense. And that's why I sort of fell out in love with PT, because I was just like, in my head, like, I did want to have add that value to someone more than just 1 or 2 hours a week, and then everything else outside those 2 hours is just like, business as usual for that person, whether they go out drinking like twice a week or something, So I get that.
It's tough. And I did, and it's like you say, it's very difficult to, get into the nuts and bolts of what they do outside of their sessions. And a lot of people do just want to come in for the session, feel better, and go home. And I think I probably, when I was doing full time and I was doing probably like 30-35 sessions a week, like I'd say about 30-40% of those were like that. And I would write them diet plans. I would make sure everything else was covered. And obviously I was quite young, so nowhere near as advanced as I am now. But I try and make sure I took care of the additional stuff. But it's like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And I remember one guy, he literally paid me something like £600 a month. I would do all 5 of his sessions per week. He'd drive over from Manchester to do them. but his carbohydrate intake was, bear in mind, he was like, he must have been like 60 kilos wet through lean mass, but the extra like 20 kilos was literally all just on his gut. His food diary was like starting off the day with like 2 pints of Coke, orange juice, toast, jam, and he just wouldn't do anything that I'd suggest with nutrition. And this was like 3 months. It took me, like, I really put the effort in with this guy, saying like, you know, we need to sort this out, It's not going to get any better doing all these sessions if, you know, and you do get people like that. That's an example, but it was, yeah, it's very difficult to, but like, I lost my drive for one-to-one PT doing it every day. Because I couldn't, I'd get to session 4 or 5 and I'd lose enthusiasm. And that for me told me that it's not the right thing for me to do. I need to be invested in it 24/7. And it's where online coaching works a lot better for me, because I'm juggling something where I feel like I'm using my brain a bit more, because PTing, it's not necessarily, coaching isn't necessarily simple all the time, but the actual, like, in terms of like the total mechanics of it, in terms of biological stuff and physiological stuff, it is reasonably simple. Consistency wins the game in the long run. But I always felt like I needed to have more, and I need to be intrigued and pushed and all that sort of stuff. So so coaching I love, because I give that level of quality, but people know that through the basis and nature of online coaching that they have to do the work themselves. They can't just turn up and rely on thinking of that one session where they smashed it is where they make all the progress. They understand it's the total process, and when they check in with me, it's the whole week that counts, not just that singular session. So it's why it suits me a lot better, and it probably does yourself as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% echo that. It's like, the reason I did my bachelor's and ended up doing the bachelor's I did, which is strength conditioning, sports nutrition, was purely because in my head, before I started that degree, I was like, well, who is a population that are going to be highly motivated and are actually going to track these things and try and be somewhat consistent outside of, you know, a gym and just beasting themselves in the gym. And obviously that made sense that it'd be athletes. So that was the initial appeal for me. But as when I discovered effectively online coaching, which was in like my first year of uni, connecting with like people like AJ Morris, and then a bunch of other coaches and everyone else since, it's definitely that energy that you get from people who come to you. Because I think it's because of how online coaching works with Instagram as well. It's a very particular sort of person who comes to you, isn't it? And it's usually someone who's familiar with the content and stuff and what you put out there. So you kind of know what to expect, as opposed to just some person wandering in off the street and saying, train me, you know? So.
Yeah, I think that. And I think there is, and for me, I mean, I like, because I think one of my, I guess, USPs is I pride myself in, like, because I live such a dynamic life and I juggle so many things, where I try and, or where my coaching style or coaching style, if you were to term it as that, sort of lies as a baseline, is I try and work with a wide array of people that are busy themselves, that their main barrier is they're not sure how to juggle things and how to fit this into the context of their own life. And that's, so I know that when they see me and they see what I'm doing, predominantly through stories and posts and stuff like that, they have that relatability to know that, okay, well, this guy manages to juggle this and this and this. And it's that, again, when I see their pre-application form and I'll see, like, you know, I'll ask them sort of open questions to get an idea of where they are or where they're at. You know, those sorts of things are where I know I can have a meaningful impact. When I can see someone's, you know, they've got the drive, they've got the motivation, they definitely want to do it, but there's just things in their life, like, you know, I've got 3 kids and I've got a job, or I'm a full-time PT, and, you know, the last coach told me I needed to have 7 meals, but I can only have 4, and, you know, just breaking things down. And then, you know, the same thing when it comes to check-ins with clients. It's more of a case of, it's not, okay, well, I've missed 2 meals and then I hammer home at them and, like, get back on track. It's more, let's look at your week in the totality and see, well, actually, you had a deadline where you finished at 1 o'clock in the morning. That's, you know, absolutely critical for your career. And the closest, like, choice you can make, or the best choice you can make, was a Subway. Like, okay, it's a chicken sandwich. Okay, it's not, it's hypercaloric in the context of your diet, but you still identified there was some solid protein in there. There was some carbohydrates, and it was better than you going and grabbing a pizza when you got home. So, okay, it was off plan, yeah, for sure. But what's more important, the thing which is gonna, well, pay your bills and give you longevity, and, well, 2, maybe enable you to afford coaching, full stop, keep the roof over your head, or the Subway sandwich? Well, there we go. And it's just that reframing of things for me, that in the context of, we all have to make sacrifices, and where most people, as you know, in any sort of industry in health and fitness, or any sort of avenue in health and fitness, new year, new you movement's a great example. Someone, you know, starts off with great intentions, goes hell for leather, 12-week transformation, which is why you never see doing these, because they always end badly. And then they do the 12-week transformation, they lose X many pounds, then what? They fall off the wagon, go back to your old habits, and there we go. But if you sort of, you know, nurture the fact that you need to integrate these things, and, you know, I don't know if you've read Atomic Habits, but it's, you know, it's a really good book that emphasizes the importance of habits, hence the name. So, and that's the sort of thing that I try and get into, where my style kind of comes in terms of this, not me trying to sell myself here, but it's just like where I find my enjoyment with coaching is helping people see the light, see like, oh, well, I can do this stuff, and actually this isn't such a bad thing. It's just tiny little steps that are moving in the right direction, and these are developing and solidifying habits that make this an important factor in my life, rather than just hit goal and then, you know, if I don't, then I failed, sort of thing. So
one of my sort of like ethoses, I guess, around coaching for me is like trying to see yourself not just as the person who is like laying down the law for however long while you're working with them. It's encouraging them and building those habits, I guess, or like just practicing those skills with a client, where when they eventually leave you, because eventually a client will end up leaving you, that's like an eventuality, right? That they leave you and they have the skill set going forward to make those key choices that you would have made, you know, which is like, I think something that is missing from like missing probably for a lot of people getting into PTing a bit more, is like, you know, understanding that people like they need that consistency going forward. And also like with newbie coaches as well, like you say, like I've not been coaching, online coaching that long, but after the, like I did the whole New Year, New Me thing last year, which was like a little transformation challenge thing. And after the fact, I definitely felt that sense of, okay, well, I still feel like I owe these people the time and care. So after that block of what they've done with me, they can go forward and still get those results going forward. And like, so for like at least 3 months afterwards, I had people who walk for that transformation challenge, like just me, and me trying to be as open as possible to answer questions, because you do feel that sense of what's the word?
Responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
that's 100%.
I was gonna say, moving on to bodybuilding, because we are a bodybuilding podcast. How did you get into bodybuilding? How did that happen?
Gosh, how did that happen? So it's a bit of a real weird one. I was first exposed to it in that first gym that I mentioned, like the three guys that sort of helped me like lose my weight and you know, made me think that this was like the thing. Like I'd moved from Johannesburg to Cape Town and was like quite insecure. I'd moved from like, it's very bizarre. Both my parents like emigrated to South Africa when we had money. And when I mean had money, like my dad's like business was at the time and all that sort of stuff. So I never went without. I was very fortunate as a child. And my early childhood was like that, private school, all that sort of stuff. And then mom went through a nasty divorce, all went apart. While that was all going on, I moved in with dad. He was in Cape Town, quite a while away from Johannesburg, and he was on a farm like middle of nowhere. So it just completely changed, and went to a state school. And I just felt really like the odd one out. And I was in that stage where I still had all my puppy fat. And then Cape Town and Hermanus, where I lived in particular, they were like super sports. Like you did not get out of PE. Like you did it if you like, yeah, if you were sick, you ended up doing it. But it was like a badge of honor as well. So like, yeah, so that made me feel really out of place. And then eventually I just started, you know, trying ways to lose weight. And I just found a gym that was really like, literally like a lifeline for me. It was just down the road from school. The manager was just such a role model, and he wrote me all my programs for free, never asked for any. He just saw that I really wanted to like lose weight. But he was in incredible shape. I don't think he bodybuilded himself, but he looked like a bodybuilder to me at that time. And then the two PTs he had there, they were definitely two bodybuilders, like a guy called Henny and Carlos. They were both like insanely huge, at least to me at the time. And that was like, you know what, I like this kind of like And then at the time I was watching Dragon Ball Z, obviously. So I was like, Dragon Ball Z, these guys are real life Dragon Ball Z guys.
Yeah.
This can actually happen. Awesome. How do I do this? So that was kind of like the seed. And then went through high school and stuff, moved back over here, just carried on training, played rugby. And then after a bit of time, someone just, suggested it. So why don't you do a show? Like I picked up all the muscle and fitness magazines and all that kind of crap, and did all those programs and stuff. And I was like, all right, cool, yeah. So I trained like a bodybuilder anyway. And then someone suggested it. And I was like, yeah, maybe. And I went through this kind of like, I'm gonna prep like 4 or 5 times. Every time I backed out when I was, just started to cut down, I was like, doesn't look like the guys in the magazines. And then I did it again, and then I cut down again and didn't look like the guys in the magazines. And eventually I was like, all right, fine, screw it, let's do it. And then committed to it. So yeah, that was it. I guess someone just, it was literally I had those seeds from early on. And then obviously, superhero cartoon characters, definitely spurred on by insecurity from moving around different countries and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But aside from the body dysmorphia, someone just said it and I went, yeah, screw it, let's be my own superhero kind of thing. And yeah,
I feel that absolutely. Like with me, a lot of like that initial influence I had for getting to bodybuilding, there was no other bodybuilders except for this one guy at the gym. Like it's just a health club down the road from where I am now. But there's this one guy who was like 22 years old. I was like 16. And he was just ripping 200 plus kilos off the floor on deadlift. And I thought it was fucking cool. So that was like straight away, okay, I want to get in there and get involved. Cause like you said, having like cartoons as role models, probably not a great idea, but in the end, it was like, well, if all I need to do is scream really loudly and like squat and shit, like I'm all about it. I think like for me, what I found was the majority, because of where I am, the majority of my influence was just Instagram, which is kind of like a shame. I wish I had a few more people like that who were more sort of role models for bodybuilding. But also there was a culture at that gym where the people who were taking stuff, like, now I'm not taking stuff. I've got no clue what you're on about. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
It's sort of like a weird mixed environment, but like the fact that you had like, I mean, I've been to Kenya once, and the fact that you found like an environment like that, like in Cape Town, is pretty crazy, to be honest.
Yeah, it was very much health club focused, and I think so that was like that just got me into like health and fitness, and giving me a bit of self-belief and stuff, changing my shape, getting the needle moving, got me to the gym. And then back over here, that was when like I basically found a sweat. It was in that time where I dropped out of college. Like I basically just ghosted everything. It was a really traumatic time in my life, and I just wanted to like shut off and just work, earn money, train. And I found like a typical bodybuilding gym, Sweat and Sawdust. And there's 2 guys in there, and they'll be on Instagram somewhere, Tom Summers and Greg Boothroyd. They are two friends of mine, and I just remembered seeing them for the first time. They were just fucking ginormous in my mind. I was like, what? How did, like, there we go again. It is possible to be a superhero, but these guys are bigger than those 2 guys. Yeah. Like, and same again, I think Tom and Greg were both benching, like, I don't know, like 4 plates a side or something, like easy. And I was like, what? So I just stuck to that gym, and all I did for the first like 6 months before I got my first car, I commuted 3 hours through like buses and trains there, worked 7 hours, commuted 3 hours back, same process again. I hopped like 3 buses and like 4 trains just to get to this like place of work. I got paid like well for it. And then my last stop was the gym, and then I'd just like get stuck in, go home, rinse, repeat 6 months. And then after I'd done that, and after I was just in that mindset of like get boring, get basic, get shit done, that was it. I was just on. So
that's fucking cool. Wow. Yeah,
I was very lucky.
There's a lot of people who don't get like I feel like that's very much like a prep mindset. Like a lot of people, like you hear about it when people diet, especially, they'll go into like that routine of just rinse and repeat, and they'll be really, really productive as well. Which is like something that some people just don't get that. I don't think some people are like quite like, I don't know, maybe high strung or something like that. Like I know some people right now, I'm not going to name any names, but some people are prepping right now who are like they don't get that. They can't like get that mentality. So yeah, it's interesting. Like,
but that's it for me. It is that 1D, like it's that train, that bodybuild. Like that's the thing I love about bodybuilding the most. It is that discipline. You can't run from it. And like when you get into like the depths of prep and like you really have to push the needle, nothing wants to move. You don't want to do anything. Like, you know, everybody knows the case. I'm not going to bang on about it. I'm not going to call it dark places or some stupid shit. But like everyone hits the struggle. Yeah, exactly. Everyone hits the same spot and everyone hits the same feelings. And it's that point when you really do just need to sort of like it teaches you discipline, teaches you control, it refines your character. And that's the thing I enjoy about it the most, because then when you come out of it on the other side, like now I'm like 2 weeks into rebound and I'm like and when like all the lights start to switch on, I'm like, oh my gosh, everything is easy again. Like I can think clearly, like, and I've also just done all of this. Like I got through it and I did it. And that's like, it just like spiderwebs into every single other area of my life. And I just love that. Like, because there are very few sports that make you, well, it is the only sport which requires you to get to the levels of body fat that we do. I mean, even elite cyclists and, you know, ultra marathoners and cross country skiers, they want to have low body mass, but they don't take themselves down to minimal body fat because they've still got so much performance that they need to do. Yeah. So to go through that process of self-denial to get as lean as you do in bodybuilding, that's like, it is such a difficult thing, and that it does change your mindset and gives you so much back. And that's what I love about it.
Wow. I just realized we're probably like half an hour in and I've not said a word.
You just sat there, just listening. Yeah.
One thing I wanted to bring up, because I was talking about it with someone else, and you've done it this season, is how to, obviously your approach to nutrition is not chicken, broccoli and asparagus, but it's how to sustain a long prep, because your season's been insanely long. So yeah, how's your approach to this season been? And obviously I've seen the homemade chili con carne recipe and stuff like that. But yeah, how have you approached this season's sustained prep?
Cool. Yeah. So it's been 8 months in total. It was, which is pretty cool actually when you think about it. But I think in general terms, I like to have a mix of meals that are autopilot, because that just fits in with work. And I think if you search for flavor in every meal, you're going to fail. Or like if you search for new flavor experiences, let's put it that way, you just become so food focused, and then you just cripple yourself with indecision. Like, and when you get really hungry and you start picking up weird shit like 501s and Halo Top and what can I air fry to make more exciting, then all you do is think about food and it just ruins your life. In more ways than one. But so I think that I try and set myself 60% of my meals are total autopilot, and they're just pre-prep, ready, easy to go. So for like 5 months of prep, all I did was go to Iceland. I bought their cooked tikka chicken breast slices, because they're cooked, already sliced. I then had their frozen mango, because excuse the Tourette's, but fuck cutting up a mango. Yeah. No, never, ever. Yeah. And the wastage from it is ridiculous as well. And then green beans. So, and all I need to do is go to the freezer, bag, hand, microwave rice, bang, done. And that's 3 of my meals for the day. And it's tasty enough. Like tikka chicken, mango, and green beans. It's actually a really good combo. I mean, a lot of my clients that listen to this will be like, yeah, it is. Thanks, man. Like, because I give it to them and they love it. And okay, like a lot of people might be like, what, they have the same meals? Yeah, because it's freaking tasty. Like, no shit. So 3 of the meals are the same. My breakfast is usually something egg white based, but I'll change it. Like I'd have like either eat lean cheese or like just I'll have some macro flexibility there. So if I wanted to have like chicken sausages or like light and lean porkies or whatever, or eat lean cheese, I can like manipulate it. But and then I could either scramble it or make an egg white pizza or whatever. So that's like a bit more flexible if I want. And then the evening meal was, I portion a lot more of my carbs in the evening because I tend to train later on as well. So it kind of facilitates carb backloading a touch more, instant sensitivity, blah, 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 blah. But then it's also more satiating. That's normally when I'm most hungry. I am not really hungry throughout the day because I'm bouncing back and forth, left, right, off the wall, up the ceiling. That like getting food in is like literally shovel in, go, switch it off, crack on. And that's another thing. Like I wanted things that were easy to eat, keep protein synthesis going, eating every 4 hours, you know the story. But excuse me, but that were enough that it shut the hunger off, kept protein synthesis going, kept recovery going, but that didn't distract me from what I was doing. And then I used my distractions from work and life to just switch it off anyway. I didn't have time to think about eating. So and then in the evening, yes, then I'd proportion because I didn't care much about my meals throughout the day. Then, well, okay, let's just throw some carbs in later on in the evening because it doesn't fucking matter. So yeah, my evening meal would be like alternating between steak and salmon. One of the two, I'd literally just go back and forth. And then it would be 600 grams of potatoes most of the time and like 200 grams of broccoli. Potatoes in the air fryer, like done. And then the last one, shameless plug, CMP Pro Dessert, which was really nice. So yeah. And that was also like a modular meal. So I'd save some carbs for that, like maybe 30, 40 grams. And then I'd do like totally weird shit. Like I'd take like the sponge fingers that you make with tiramisu because they're only like 5 grams of carbs each, but they have sugar on them. And I break them up, put those in, or like caramel rice cakes or tinned apples. But then again, I can modulate that. And there's 3 flavors of Pro Dessert. So I can do that if I want. So I have some flexibility, but the rest of it's pretty much all prepped. Time management's done, all that sort of stuff. So
that's interesting. Like you've got a bit of biodiversity in there as well, I guess, from that other 40% that like you're alternating in terms of food choices. Like that's something that Joe will remember.
For digestion as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Joe will remember this. The downfall of me eating last time was me just eating the exact same shit on a clock, like I was a fucking like I was a boxer in a boxing camp. Just
it was quite funny. The thing I remember the most was I think you just finished competing second show, and Tim Jones was in the gym. It was a week out from his show.
Yeah,
and the show had finished, or you're 2 weeks before your show, 2 weeks after your show, or whatever. And you're eating minced beef and vegetables, just a shitty frozen fucking veg pack. And Tim comes over and he's like, "What are you eating that for?" And Jermaine was like, "Oh, it's the post show. I don't want to put weight on too fast." And Tim was like, "Nah, sod that, mate. You've just dieted for like 6 months. Like, why? Why are you eating that same meal that you've eaten for the past 6 months every day at 2 o'clock?" Yeah. And I think your response at the time was because it tastes nice. And he went, "You've been on prep too long, man."
It's really sad because the first meal that I went for on my day were like, because obviously I had like the last 4 weeks I've been with Tom Hames, and when he gave me my new macros, like on my training days, it's like 600 grams of carbs, and I'm like, what do I do with all these things? And the first thing, I was so crippled with indecision, I was like, chicken mango and add more rice. So I had that.
Yeah.
That was me.
You've stopped having the frozen mango. You're just eating a whole mango now.
Yeah, just leave the skin on. Go through the stone as well. Rebuild those teeth.
That post window. Yeah, no, I'm the same. Like I just added more to the exact same shit. So I was just pulling up to uni lectures just with my Tupperware still, and they're like, "You've finished dieting?" I'm like, "Yeah." Actually,
I have more.
my induction for second year, I turned up to the first day of induction for second year for my bachelor's with a Tupperware, eating my food. I started stage 10 on because I competed on the Sunday.
Yeah.
So
oh my god!
With the tan on, and my lecturer was just looking at me like, "What the fuck has happened to you in the past 3 months?"
my first PhD interview after, during my master's, the second round of interviews, I did it the morning after I'd competed, so it was literally 9 a.m. And so I still had full stage sound, and I said, "I'm sorry, this is what's happened the day before." And they asked me to give them a flex, and I did. So I had that on the camera as well. Pretty hilarious.
I remember the one thing that I ended up doing, which was pretty out there, and I kind of regret now, to be fair, because it crippled my stomach, because it was just so different, obviously, from what I've been doing for the past 6-7 months, was I went to Prism in Birmingham, like 4 days post show. So I still had the undercoat of tan on.
Oh.
And I was like, I'm gonna go full like dickhead, and I wore like a tight like muscle top, basically, tight jeans, loafers, all that stuff. And I came back, and in the morning, I remember waking up and just my stomach cramps were awful. And that's like the big thing with my prep. The whole issue I had with the entirety of that prep in the end was just not having that variety, just not having.
Yeah, the shirt was that tight, it gave you stomach cramps. Terrible.
Yeah.
Built-in waist trainer, like.
Yeah.
I got some weird fucking looks that night, to be fair.
Yeah.
Do we have questions, lads, we want to get onto?
I've got a question. I just didn't know if we all wanted to touch on anything else before we get to them.
Do we want?
Yeah. Let's mission with questions, I think.
Okay. Let's go.
One of them was how to sustain the long prep. So we've gone through that. From Will Smart. Now you're a classic pro. Will you bring back the Tarzan hair?
I mean, it's better than a fucking mustache, so yeah, maybe.
Nice.
We'll set a new trend.
I feel like the Hulk Hogan handlebar needs to come into classic. I feel like that's missing.
It's still a mustache variant. I couldn't do it to myself. Like, I have to.
You have to just forget the mustache. Just have sideburns.
Yeah. Just do the down bits. That's it. I'll just like remove that. Just have these two little strips. Yeah. I would sooner castrate myself than have a mustache for classics. So.
I think the next step, you have to dye it a color if you're gonna have a mustache. You got to dye it the same color as your posing trunk.
Do the Hadi Chupan blonde, like the suit.
Yeah.
Proper banana hammock with a blonde mustache.
Oh my god.
Brilliant.
Yeah, before we get to proper questions as well, from Smithy, who's your favorite strongman friend?
Oh, it's definitely that Ben Smith from Big Ben Products. Man, he's just it's just because he's so beautiful. That's the main thing, I think. Yeah.
God, that's high praise for strongman.
Yeah, some dead eyes. The dead eyes that do it for
me. Just anadrol eyes, yes.
He's also really good at carrying pianos. So if anybody needs a good piano carrier, like Ben's your guy.
That's a plug.
There you go.
Some work.
What are some of the key lessons you've learned this prep?
Gosh. Key lessons I've learned. If you are prepping with your fiance, don't do the same shows together. Do separate shows. Like we've done that this season as the first thing. Like the last season we did several shows together, and this season we've been made sure most of our shows are separate except for the NFN European, and that was so much easier. Like because we could just be there in each other's corner, and I guess it's a bit more difficult when I'm actually coaching her, but like. Just from the aspect of like, it's neither yours nor their day. It's your day or their day. You don't have to like try and share it. And like, when one of you gets moody, the other one is not going to get upset. The other one can just sort of, absorb it and take it, drive, all that sort of stuff. So that's a big one, really.
Interesting. I've never done that actually.
It's tough.
Yeah.
A lot of people ask us how we do it, and to be honest, I couldn't do it if my partner didn't prep. Like it's just so much easier, like knowing that what we're going through and all that sort of stuff. So, but then I guess another thing as well, another two biggest lessons. One, doing multiple shows in multiple feds, like that's been like a huge thing for me, like confidence wise, because I've never been the most confident of guys, and just having, and especially in classic physique, because it's such a friggin' it's such a difficult criteria to nail down, and everybody's got their own different interpretations. So if you stick with one, you can kind of feel like you're the black sheep, you don't fit. But then you go to another, and then you see that they want, they reward different things. So that's, excuse me, sorry, Diet Pepsi. But yeah, when you go to different feds, you just get an idea of the way that they run shows differently. Like PCA is very Like they've now got their shows down to such an efficient manner that I don't really like the fast pace, to be honest. Like, because you don't end up gassing yourself while you're on stage. And the show, like the shows they put on are fantastic. That it really feels like a, you know, kind of superstar arena over there. But it's very fast paced and very quick. But then you get NFM, for example, and they're like a really like they spend a lot of time with athletes, and it's a lot more sensationalized, I feel like, anyway. Like you feel like you're on a bit more of a like a theatrical performance kind of stage, that they're really good with the crowd and getting them going and stuff like that. That's kind of a really difficult way to summarize those two, but they've all got their own different pros and cons, and they judge things differently. So you get a good sense of where you can fit, and you also don't feel left out. You feel like your best qualities are recognized across the board. And ultimately people will, if you find that you like a different fed, like there's no point in senselessly chasing like pro status or whatever in another fed. If you actually think that, well, you enjoy it more in this fed, because if ultimately you love bodybuilding and love what you do, or love figure and bikini fall under bodybuilding anyway, but you've just got to do it for your own enjoyment anyway. So at least if you've got somewhere that you know you can fit in and have a good time, then, because I will, like, every season from now on, I will go and do NFM shows, and I will go and do FitX shows as well, because I had such a good time at both of their shows this year, that just how I like the memories that they've made. I want to make more of those. Like, they were just so good for me. Versus some of the feds I can't really say the same for. So which I won't name, because naming and shaming is not cool. But yeah, so that, and then third one would be post show. Don't just eat donuts and shit mindlessly. Don't like buy into the whole like, oh, so what are you having? Like, oh, I can't wait to like, but just, if you don't want to do that, if you want to stay in shape, especially if you've got back-to-back shows, unless your coach has told you to go and have a burger or whatever, like, don't go nuts just because everybody else is. Like, if you want to get back on track the next day, you don't have to feel pressured because everybody else is having a cheat meal to go have one. Like, all we've done literally throughout the entire of this season, we've had a scheduled steak and potatoes meal and a glass of wine. That's what we've had on the Sunday when we finish show, or Saturday, whatever. But I find that there's so much like adrenaline when you come off stage. You can't make a rational decision. You're going to be hungry anyway. Like, and you probably won't have eaten, if you've been sensible, you wouldn't have eaten that much on show day anyway, because you don't want your stomach to bloat. So you've just gotten posed for and pumped up for how many hours, dehydrated for a lot of people. Like, your body just wants a bit of food. So get a chicken salad and get a steak and potatoes, something simple and functional. Like, by the time you wake up the next morning, you definitely want to be back on plan if you're going into another show. So then you won't have any decisions to regret. But in that moment where your emotions are heightened and everybody else around you is doing it, you can feel that kind of social pressure, or like that, like, oh, I can go and do that because everyone else is doing that. Like, that's the one thing we haven't done. Like, in fact, I waited till Steph finished her last show last weekend until I had like an off-plan meal, just wait till things settle down. So I think, yeah, just having that breathing space in between and after shows is crucial. Not just being reactive to what's around you, or just doing what everybody else is doing for the sake of doing it. Sit and think about what you actually want. There's no rule book to say that you have to then, like, much like you with your beef and your broccoli, or your beef and your, you didn't have to.
Vegetables.
Yeah, you enjoyed doing it. It's part of it, and you just sort of went back to your default to you were figuring out what you needed to do, and that's totally cool. Like, figure out what you need to, give your brain some space first. So that'd be number 3, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah, just to add to that as well, a lot of people, and for competitors, like, if a lot of first timers, especially right now, are like ending their seasons. So I think it's quite a good thing to touch upon. I think a lot of people confuse like not having, like, being deprived of food post diet with being deprived of socializing. I think that's a thing as well. Like, for me especially, what I ended up realizing post show wasn't that I wanted food. I wanted to be around people, like, and just do normal people things. Hence why I ended up going to prison. Whether or not I feel like it was a mistake now, probably was.
Just to clarify, you're not saying prison.
No, not prison. not the prison changing rooms. No, I'm talking about Prism, the nightclub in Birmingham. Just to clarify.
That would add a whole new dimension to stomach pain.
Yeah. Oh. For fuck's sake.
Sorry.
Oh, that's gross. That's funny. Something was going to just slip, wasn't it? At some point.
Certainly did that day.
We've done well. It stayed really professional for the best part.
That day Jermaine got Jermaine.
Oh. Yeah, just be coming back around to it. Just be sociable. Not like that, but be sociable. Because a lot of the time, that's all you need post-show.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Another question, folks.
The question I want to save to the end. I know you put up a question box, Will. Do you have any good ones?
I didn't get any responses.
Okay.
Remarkably, I didn't. So
Fair enough.
Fine. Screw you, followers.
Fuckers. Yeah.
You, Jermaine?
I actually did have a question which escaped me after the prison talk, and I'm now really trying to think. Come back round to me. I'll remember it in a second.
Yeah. For me, obviously, posing is something that you pride yourself on when you're on stage. It's I think PCA Midlands was the first one me and Jermaine saw you at.
Yeah.
And first thing we noticed as soon as you came out was presentation was levels above whoever else was on stage. When did you has it always been something you prided yourself on, or is it something that you've developed over time?
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that, because that's been a huge thing for me this season. Just everybody's been so freaking lovely with that. Like, I just never thought I'd ever be this guy, like, who is like, what the fuck? This guy's really good at posing. Your posing is beautiful. Cry. Like, honestly, it's been amazing. And the answer is no. I used to be. I really need to dig out where I started with posing, because, like, I remembered where I actually started to practice. It was in my. It was when I was still in halls in first year. And I was doing it in the uni kitchen and with a laptop on top of like the communal fridge, and people would walk in. Like, it'd be fair enough if I was doing it now because I look pretty polished. Like, back then, it was horrendous. Like, it just looked so bad. There's not gunfire outside; it's also fireworks. Like, it is Bradford, so it could actually be gunfire, but I don't know. But I think I can see it in the sky, so it's all right. But yeah, no, it didn't used to be.
Panic flare.
Yeah, all of the above.
We've insulted him in one podcast. We're on the roll.
Bradford's lovely. I love this band. But yeah, so I know it wasn't always there. I just started doing little bits, and then when I got to my first show, it was actually pretty decent. I'd not practiced that much, but I practiced enough. I think it was then between then and finals. And like between my qualifiers and finals and my first season, which was 2016, that then I was like, right, up every day practicing, like just going through the mandatories. And then it just started to become really like reasonably polished. Then from there, I started to get some comments and like, oh yeah, you pose really well and you've got some classic stuff to it. And I think I had like 2 or 3 classic poses at the time, which is what made me do the classic category in the first place. And then like I sat and reflected and thought, when I saw the photos, I was like, oh right. I can actually do that. Look, I can vacuum. Like I've been able to vacuum since I was a child. Like I used to do it as a joke, and I used to be able to like, hey, look, I can touch my organs. Like it was just funny. I couldn't flex. I didn't have a bicep to flex when I was a kid. I was so like scrawny, but like I could suck my stomach in. Great. So yeah, and then from there, like pretty much whenever it gets to in season, like on each off season I've been getting better at practicing. Like the last 2 off seasons have been the best. So the last 3 years I've just kept it religiously at like 3 times 30 a week. And then now like in prep I probably practice at least 5 or 6 hours a week. And I joke that like I'll always get stuff done and I'm incredibly resilient. Like you can put me on like 60 grams of carbs a day at like the last 8 weeks, and you can make me pummel 2 hours of cardio, do 20,000 steps, and then pose, and I won't blink an eye. Like, but the one thing that I won't struggle to do, like cardio, I can push myself through. Steps, I can push myself through, and I can motivate myself to do. Kind of. I won't be happy about it, but I'll do it. Yeah. But posing, like I'll know when I need to stop posing because I'll start to feel a hypo coming on, and then I'll check my watch and be like, oh, in 2 hours, you should probably eat something. And I just love doing it. Like it's, for me, that is like that's become what bodybuilding is for me to a certain extent. Like, obviously I want to improve my physique. Obviously I want to, you know, keep moving forward, but it all boils down to like, how can I make that look better? How can I make that shot look better? I'll pull up like all of like the 90s Arnold classics, like the first few of them, you know, all of the greats from back then, and even some of the 70s and 80s guys. I'm more level with like the 90s and 80s, but like, you know, some of the really old school guys do that as well. And then there's obviously some of the new guys like Terrence Ruffin and stuff like that. But like, I can literally just sit, watch, and obsess and think, right, I want to replicate that. Like, I want to try and see, how can I do that? How can I do it in my way? How can I tie these things together? My posing playlist, like my bodybuilding posing song playlist, is like, I don't know, 90 tracks in. And there's like loads of things, from like really slow stuff like R&B to like really dramatic stuff like I did for NFM. Like, and I just love it. Like, I find myself like transitioning in the kitchen and stuff, because it's just like, I just want to do that. Like, I want to put on a show and to express myself like that. I can't dance for shit, but I can pose really well, which is bizarre.
Were you a theatre ever?
Sorry, mate.
Were you ever like a theatre kid or a music kid? Was that ever a thing for you?
No, my brother was though. Like, I mean, I like theatre. I like watching performances and stuff. Whenever we go abroad, we'll always try and find like an opera house or a theatrical performance place. I was definitely raised with that, but like doing it myself, nah. The most I've ever done is play those animals behind me, but which haven't been played in about 4 years. But yeah, that's as far as music goes for me in terms of like performance. But no, never.
I was going to say because. Yeah, I was going to say, because from the 65 episodes into this, 65 guests or more really, and it's always a divide between sort of a creative mindset and a scientific analytical mindset. But you've obviously got a career in science, and then self-expression is your favorite part of bodybuilding. It's a weird dynamic. It's something I've not really come across before. So obviously some of the best posers we have on: Josh Kinsey-Clough, Kevin Stutz, probably missing out a few other ones, and then more so the people that are more invested in the science of the sport don't really take that much notice or take that much pride in it. I guess they just do it because it's necessary.
It's not like a conversation they'll talk about happily, like you've just done for 5 minutes or whatever. Like, that's something that comes up, so it's quite interesting. Yeah. Which I think is like, I think that's probably something that is essential for classic, to be honest. Yeah. If you're going to classic, you should be a good poser, like at the very least. So.
It baffles me as to why, like, because, and it's the one thing I like about NFM as well. It's the one thing which I'm just so glad and so privileged that I ended on that note, because they actually judge your posing routine. No other Fed does that, and it utterly baffles me, like, as to why your routines aren't judged. Like, I mean, it doesn't matter, because I just love doing it regardless. But I literally practiced my routines like that. For the first routine I did, the Midlands one, I think in total, by the time I got to the British, it was like at least 400 times I practiced that routine, like over and over and over and over again, changing things, transitions. I took one out, put another one back in. But and when you listen to a song 400 times, you got to have love for it. Like,
yeah.
Well, it's like the one we was doing for ages, Jermaine. Yeah, like 6 a.m. What was the song? I can't remember the song now.
It was, oh fuck, I can't remember. It's on my like old posing playlist on like an iPod.
Yeah. Venga Boys.
Yeah. Spot on, you got it, Venga Boys. No, I can't remember what it was now. It was kind of not R&B, but
yes.
In my head now, all I can think of is that fucking like 80s R&B track. Every time I close my eyes, all I can think of is that. It's not that song.
I'm clipping that out.
Yeah. You're gonna do a cut to the actual song, aren't you?
Yeah.
I think that's cool. Like, especially if you have a playlist of songs that you would, I assume, consider posing to in your career.
Yeah. They're all the ones that I sort of bank. I'll just listen to something and I'll go like, oh yeah, that's going in the bank for future.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've got a few. Have you got any like joke ones? Like, not joke ones, but any ones which are a bit out there?
So ironically, I nearly stitched in, you know, at the end of Deadpool, or not the end of Deadpool, like where he meets that like really hench like German lady, and she like lands and he goes, "Yay, superhero landing!"
Yeah.
I nearly stitched that in at the end of my last song. But I couldn't bring myself to it because I didn't know if like either it would go really well or it would go horrific and everyone would be like, what the fuck is this guy doing? But yeah, I'll do it. And I'll do it at guest posing if anybody ever invites me to one.
Yeah, you've got to have like I know that Jack Richardson, for his one, he like stitched 2 songs together and then just started dancing for the last like 10 seconds of his posing routine, like just actually dancing on stage.
Yeah, like Melvin Anthony, he like
sometimes it works really well.
Melvin Anthony is really good for that. Like he's got one where he like breaks into like the Macarena at the end. I was like, yes, lad, freaking hilarious.
Just goes into like a Blade soundtrack or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a sick poser. I was actually thinking about getting a posing coach potentially for next year. That's something that I'm considering.
Wow, I do coach posing.
Yeah.
Suppose, let me look at my diary. Free Wednesday, free Thursday. I'm got a slot free maybe at
just like
6 months from now.
I need to actually start doing my research on posing coaches. And
if you're in Birmingham, dude, seriously though, like if you want someone in Birmingham, just hit Adrian Gray up at Saxon. Like the guy's he's incredible, and you can see him in person. It'd be far better than like seeing him virtually. But that guy's shit up, really good. And I honestly, I guarantee you, like he can make anybody like a brilliant poser. He's really good, really good.
But just to say, he's no longer in Birmingham, he's in Sheffield, so he's only next to you, Will. So.
Oh, okay, fine. Don't go to Adrian. Give me a sec.
Speaking of posing, like I've put together some songs that I think could be good to pose to, and it is weird, like the variety of stuff you'd find yourself putting in there. Like I've got, speaking of Deadpool 2, Ashes by Celine Dion in there.
Yeah.
And then in the playlist as well, I've got Imagine Dragons Sucker for Pain. I've got some stuff from Weiss, which is like a synth 80s authentic gaming fucking platform for Twitch streamers. That's in there.
Yeah.
All kinds of different shit. But
I've got The Touch by Stan Bush from the track.
I can imagine you posing to that. To be Rusted Root as well.
Yes.
Yeah,
I've got some right weird ones. So I've got loads of like R&B stuff. Then I've got like all of your like dramatic, like Hans Zimmer style, like theater stuff. I've got an F. I've got The Score. I've got Seal. I've got, in fact, one of my first posing routines was The Seal.
Batman.
Nice.
Batman. No, I couldn't. Actually, shit. No, I do. Hang on. I've got one of his. I've got 2 tracks from Man of Steel soundtrack.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that's there. Sorry, that's not Batman. That's Superman. Same thing.
Yeah. Whoa.
Also,
Kiss. What is it? Kiss from a Rose. That's a good song.
that was my first routine. I love
that
song.
That's Batman Forever. So
it's so good. It's like
in my head, and I bet Joe knows what the song is.
What?
No, yeah.
Oh no, yeah, Motley Crue. It'd be amazing. It's actually whether that somehow in. I mean, I know they edited it in for the Call of Duty game on the trailer, and it's sort of a theatrical version of Kickstart My Heart.
Yeah, there's one. I have found that actually because I was doing some digging because I was like, maybe I should just do this for the shits and gigs for one show next year. Just do Kickstart My Heart because it'll be funny. There's a couple of them. There's like a techno one as well, which feels a bit like it's the sort of music the German, like, you know, those like that you get those like old like NABBA German bodybuilders. They always pose to techno.
Yeah. Techno Viking.
Yeah. That sort of
God.
But Kickstart My Heart.
I think the main thing is you just got to feel it, man. It's what like whenever a client asks me for like songs, this like, what should I post? I'm like, make sure you get one that you can feel it and you can feel it consistently every single time you hear it. And it just needs to have like periods of like lulls and then drama and drops, like, and then pick like 10, 14 poses. Don't overcomplicate it. Make sure you hold the pose for long enough. And if you've got moments where you've got flows in the track where you can transition between it, like one of the, in fact, both in my last routine for the NFM and in Will Smart's routine, because I did his routine for the British, there's like a little like sort of, it goes from like, you know, nice little build up, and then it sort of has this little empty drop, and then it almost has like a kind of sword swipe. And then at that moment, like I did that as a moment where I was transitioning between a pose, but then I'd flick to the back and then switch the glutes on. And then that's just, and for Will, I did it so that he pulled back into his lat spread during that, because he's got some quite freaky Christmas tree shit going on. So switch glutes, switch lats on. It just adds that like little, you know, that little pop to it. So, you know, think about how you can like have parts where you've not only got your poses, but also like, so you've got enough where you can hit poses on the beat. You've got some dramatic parts to like create, you know, a big impact, but then also some parts where you can like flow and create artful transitions between. But like, I think that's it. Just make sure it's on tune, because there's nothing worse than like a routine where someone's like just not enthused or nothing's in timing. Like some guy used that monster track I used for the UK DFBA British. He won his class, but my God, like it was just, there was not a single pose was to the beat, and he looked bored, and I was like, okay, fair enough, you've won your class, but like to me, it was, as a spectator, I was like,
what's the impact of that? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but it's not to diss the guy. It's just like I was like, I think again, because I'd like, you know, I think personally, because I'd gone and put the effort into that track, it was like, really, like,
yeah,
okay, but I guess
invested in it, right? Like
yeah,
fundamental level.
Well, me and Jermaine said, like, I think across we've been to 5 shows this season. Yeah. I think we've heard I'm a Survivor about 147 times.
The fucking Terence Ruffin, like the Spy soundtrack shit, like all the time, like, on repeat.
As no one, but I think was that one of the shows, he literally just copied the whole Terence routine.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. I saw that. And
yeah,
I get it. But the thing is, that Survivor track, you can't do it in 1 minute. You have to have the full 3 minutes, because there's the build-up that makes it. So because I looked at that and I went, nope, not possible. I even thought of like cutting it and then moving around, because it's just such a good track, but you lose the impact from it. So I was like, nah, bin it, done.
You need the full thing.
Like I think it's Theo Liguera, who we watched at the Arnold, who posed to Princes of the Universe by Queen.
Yeah,
and it had the sword swipe in there, like that, the soundtrack. But obviously, he was doing it for like 2.5 minutes, not a minute. And I thought that would be awesome to pose to, but you can't do it in a minute because you lose the impact. So you have to have something that's fairly slow, massive peak or a massive drop into a massive peak, and then sort of mellows out where you can hit all your good poses and stuff, and maybe finish on a high note, and then maybe collapse to the stage or whatever. Not collapse on stage. I'm not saying that, you know.
But, that's the hardest thing to do.
On stage, yeah.
The hardest thing to do.
Yeah. I'll send a track to the group chat, because I think I actually do have one of my, at least one of my songs picked out for next year now. So I'll send it to group and get your opinion. It is a Hans Zimmer track, but you probably
okay.
Probably. Hans Zimmer is sick. That guy is flawless, and like I think the main thing as well is if you just like a really, really, really good posing tip, like always start with one of your strongest poses and always finish with one of your strongest poses. You have to do that. And yeah, as long as you've got that, and then like Joe was saying, having enough of a build up and then drops and stuff like that, like
for those.
Yeah, and just don't include weak poses. That's another thing I see people do so many times. Like they just put a side tricep in, like when it looks dog shit.
People just do their mandatory poses. They literally just run through mandatories.
Like
they're Dorian Yates, and every mandatory they have is sick, which it isn't most of the time. So weak pose, right?
That's it. And if there's a weak pose, just don't include it. Even if you're not the most creative, like, and you think, oh, I'm just gonna be doing the same pose over and over again. Well, doing the same pose over and over again that looks strong rather than showing a weakness is better than throwing in a weak pose, because then you're not being judged on that. You're being judged on that during your mandatories. So, you know, if you're gonna have to do something, even if you're not gonna have fun doing it, just have fun doing your nice poses. Like, don't do the rubbish ones.
It's like you see sometimes, even at the pro level, some of the bigger guys just have no interest or just can't be asked to pose. They just hit most musculars for a minute or 2.5 minutes. But it works for them because they've got impactful physique that can carry them without them looking artistic or whatever. So,
and the thing is, they'll like doing the most musculars a bit more than they will doing the other poses. And like, if you're gonna have to do something, you may as well enjoy it. And if you enjoy doing your most musculars, do your most musculars. Like, that's the thing. So
to finish, What's next for you?
What's next? So we are on Operation 2023 with Tom. So that's my bodybuilding next. My other next, I'll say in a sec, but 2023 is PCA Pro Card and IFBB Pro Card. We want to be at the point where we are pushing to meet the weight limit for IFBB Classic, which for me is 212. And this season we finished at like, I think dehydrated because we didn't have scales, so it'd probably have been like 204, 202. And I probably had about another 4 or 5 pounds that I could have shifted to be, properly peeled. So I reckon end peeled weight would have been like 197, 198. So that gives me about 14 pounds between now and 2023 early season to put on. So, which is doable.
Yeah.
But yeah, we want to be there, like, suffering, losing fucking size, or, just really, really pushing the boat out to get to that stage, super peeled. So that's the goal for that. So IFBB and PCA, and we'll do a big run. So if we're looking at like the European shows as well. So we'll probably do a UK qualifier, the 2 bros, and then we'll look at the UK pro qualifiers, and then we'll also look at like the Italian Spain qualifiers, the Emilio Martinez, the Piotr, whatever his surname is, can't pronounce it. Yeah. Those ones, and we'll go from there. And PCA Pro Card I definitely want, because I love them as a fed. I think they're going in leaps and bounds. Their shows are flawless, run fantastically. So those are the 2 there. And then career wise, oh God. So we're getting married in June. We are then I finished my diploma in performance nutrition in like October, November, I think, or is it December? One of those 2. So I finished that next year anyway. Yeah. I finished my PhD in March 2023, and then from there, the application's open for applying for the STP, which is the Scientist Training Program for the NHS. That will then accrue me another master's. It'll be master's number 3.
Just collecting trophies, aren't you, at this point? Like that's what.
Yeah. I'm just greedy, that's all. Actually what it is, it's all gear, no idea. Like all the qualifications that I'm actually dumb as shit. I'm really good at copy paste.
It's fucking cool though, like considering not a lot of people can't say they even have a master's, myself included. So that's fucking like sick that you can pursue that, and that's like you've got that mapped out, which is really cool.
I mean, this is coming from me. Like, I'd never had a set idea of what I wanted to do. Like, I've changed my mind 50 million times. I dropped out of college in my 2nd year, and I think that's another thing which I quite like. Like, I still am making something of myself, even though I was technically a college dropout. I mean, I got good grades and stuff, but I panicked and whatever. And that's one thing I'd always say to everybody: like, you don't need the qualifications are great, but I'm doing this because I love it. And like, the performance nutrition diploma, for example, like, that can make me SNER registered, and then I can work with sports teams. And that's like, ironically, that wasn't my initial goal, but it's just something else I can see myself enjoying doing. And then everything else I'm learning on that with metabolomics and stuff like that, like I can still translate to my clients. So, I'm just doing things that I love. Like the qualifications are a vehicle for that. But like, the one thing which I always try my very best to do, like I try not to swing my academic qualifications in people's faces, because I just think I don't like being pedantic and all that sort of stuff. I think it's like, it helps me and I love it and I love being a scientist, but like, as long as you're doing what you're happy doing, and as long as you follow your passion with the gifts that you have, everyone's got their own gifts. And we always tend to have this grass is greener sort of approach. Like, but at the end of the day, different people have got different skill sets and different things to offer. And that's the most important thing, I think.
What a fucking way to, what a fucking note to end that on. That's fucking great. It's probably the cleanest ending we've had to like a podcast, I think, so far, Joe. Usually it ends in a mess.
I ruined it with that bomb.
I think I cut out.
Yeah.
Hear what anyone said.
Yeah, it's all right, Jermaine. We're just insulting you. It's fine.
Can we play Venga Boys as the outro?
I'm sure we'll figure that out.
That's why Jermaine's plays and drinks behind him, really.
Yeah.
Prepared.
In every single one we do. I'm going to do that. Like when I move into a new place, I'm going to just have them on the wall behind me.
No, don't put them on the wall. Frame them. When you used to watch Cribs and you'd go around like Hollywood actors' houses and they've got signed jerseys. You can just have your boxed up with a little pitch, like a stage shot, an official one in the corner, and then the trunk's just pinned in. Has to be a purple pin as well.
I need to get like PSA graded, like it's a mission pair of Iron Monkey.
Yeah,
just sprayed on the wall. Yeah, I'll get that sorted. I'll figure that out. I'm actually thinking of doing that now. That's really funny.
Can you put some LEDs inside the case?
Yes, yeah, like like neon, just lining it.
Flashing.
Yeah,
it needs to be like the biggest wall of the house, like the feature wall, like the most, like make it 7 meters wide, and that just needs to be the only thing on the wall, like nothing else.
in the kitchen.
Yeah. Or no. In the living room, like your living room is all cramped into a corner, but one big wall is just dedicated to those trunks. Like,
oh my god,
great.
I'm thinking of doing this now. This sounds really funny. Or like in my man cave. I feel like I'm gonna have a man cave. I'll just have it in the man cave. You open the door, first thing you see dead ahead on the opposite wall as you walk into a room.
The trunks.
Opposite the 14-inch dildo, yes.
Oh, what?
It happens every time. It just goes to complete dog shit. Anyway, do you want to plug yourself a bit more on CMP and stuff before we go, Will?
Yeah, so I'm also a CMP, official CMP athlete. I've been with them for a year. I actually asked them if I could be one of the athletes because I randomly did a body power with them when I was early dating Steph, and I just wanted to be part of them. They are fucking incredible. Like, they are, like, I wouldn't go with anybody. In fact, I got offered a sponsorship with Effective Nutrition after the NFM UK and turned it down straight away. I've had like 2 other offers, not like past becoming pro, but like in the past, and turned down instantly because they are just like such an awesome family. That's been a huge part for me this season. Like, I've had a ball of a time with them. So they're incredible. And buy our stuff because we're cool. TAS 15% discount. So yeah, CMP. And I am also part of another research group called the asuk.org, or is it .org.uk? If you just search ASUK Anabolics, it's like a research group based on harm reduction. So we're looking at ways of improving harm reduction services and stuff in the UK to do with performance enhancing drugs users, which is pretty cool because, as you know, education is pretty limited in that regard.
That's really cool. I know Dave Crossland does a similar thing. So
yeah,
he's in the group as well. So it was.
Oh, he's the same thing. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I remember listening to him about 2 years ago, and he was talking at an army barracks or something like that, and you know, putting it across to not just for anabolics either. I know he was talking about alcohol abuse and everything like that, but which is really cool to see.
So that's for everyone, not just bodybuilders out there, but for everyone who watches this. Go check that out. That is pretty special, I think.
It's good. It's good. I think they do have the inaugural conference that we did in October last year, I think, actually, a year ago, where we had quite a lot of guest speakers and stuff like that. It was all online, obviously, during COVID. So, but yeah, there was quite a few talks, a few useful ones that even like we've got Harrison. We had Harrison Pope is part of the group. Bill Llewellyn, the author of Anabolics, he's part of the group, I think, as well. So it's still early days and stuff like that, but we have actually, like, again, I haven't conducted these studies, but I've participated in them as an expert and contributing to them. But yeah, there's been some studies going on. I think they've done like 3 or 4 now since the launch of this group. They've all been doing studies themselves in the background, the various researchers. Obviously, my field of research is completely different. I'm there as a panel, or one of the expert panels. Steph's on as well, as a medical expert. But we're all contributing our various areas of expertise, which is really good because we don't really have these collective minds in one place helping these sort of things. And the basis of the first few studies has been to get an idea of the demographic and, you know, how far is usage, how much do people use needle exchange practices, and you know, how do people view themselves in terms of steroids? Like, if they were to identify that they were to have a side effect, would they continue to use it, or would they not? Do they feel like their self-image is, do they feel like they need it to maintain their self-image, to maintain their happiness, that sort of stuff? So, you know, things like that, because I think the statistics aren't really talked about enough. And I think from there, then we might, you know, hopefully get some traction, get more into the nitty gritty of things. So, but it's all positive stuff and all things coming back. So.
Because I'm really intrigued right now. Is going to be pushed onto, like, do you have any of those published on databases right now, like PubMed, stuff like that? Is that anything that we can look at or at present that's published? Or
some of them have been, some of them we're currently doing. So one of the studies, I think it's in like the second stage of it. The one of them we just did was a Delphi study, which is like a multi-stage like panel thing. Kind of hard to explain. Best thing to do is Google Delphi study and you'll see what I mean. But there were a couple that have been recently published, yes. I haven't got the PubMed links to them yet because they're in the emails that they've sent to everybody saying thanks for your stuffs. It'll probably also be on the website as well. But
I'll try to find them on the website and stuff. I'll put them in the link for the description of the video. If this will probably go live early next week, so should be fine.
Yeah, that'd be good.
It's been awesome. Thanks again, Will, for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
No problem, guys. No problem. And it's been really good to be a part of it and breaking my podcast virginity. It's nice.
Yeah.
Cherries to pop. I'll definitely get you on again. If whether it's discussing some topics by yourself or we get you on alongside someone else, talk about some stuff. Would be interesting. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, Tom's a big fan of coming here like 3-4 times now. So.
Oh, great. Tom. No, honestly, I've got so much time for him. I'm so glad I asked him to coach me as well because, like, yeah, and we know each other, so that'd be great. But yeah, 100% definitely be good to be back on, and I'd be really grateful for that.
Awesome. Let's wrap it up then.
Cool.
Joe, you can wrap it up. I started it.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening to episode 764 of the Off the Script podcast with myself, Jermaine, and Will, the Anabolic Scientist on Instagram. And we'll see you on the next one.
Ta-ta.